So let's get into this. So about the webinar, little housekeeping before we start. Again, the webinar is being recorded. You are all automatically muted on entry. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat, the QA panel. What we'll do is we'll look at the questions at the end of the webinar. We'll have some time allocated to review the questions and go through those questions and keep them coming. Again, we will be sharing the recording and the slides following the presentation, so you'll all have access to it after the call. Okay, so at a high level, the summary, what will we be discussing today on this webinar? So before we start, we'll go through what do we do, Assurance IT, and how we can help you leverage the cloud to really back up your Office 365 and your Veeam infrastructure to Assurance IT. So we'll go through who Assurance IT is. Then we'll dive deep into the Office 365 and why we need to protect it. So the shared responsibility between Microsoft and the customer, and go through some supporting why materials. Then Brett will dive deeper into the product itself, Veeam Backup for Office 365. What is new? What cool new features are available in version 3? We will drive through a demo and showcase how it works. And then we'll close the webinar off with some packaging and some pricing and get a better understanding of what the competitive landscape is. And as mentioned earlier, we'll go through the questions that are in the chat at the end of the webinar. Really go through those questions and drive deeper into any insight if anyone on the call has any questions. So we are scheduled for 1 hour. We believe we can drive through this webinar within 30 to 45 minutes. So again, thank you for joining, and we can drive through who Assurance IT is. So Assurance IT, we are a cloud-based offsite backup and disaster recovery company, right? We offer a couple of different solutions. The first one being backup and secure backup to the cloud. So for all Veeam customers, leveraging backup and replication, we can connect into your single pane of glass, your Veeam backup and replication portal, and offer Cloud Connect, which is moving your backups offsite to protect against ransomware and having as a secondary repository in case of disaster on your primary site. Secondly, we offer extending archives to the cloud. Customers that need long-term retention, compliance, we offer archives leveraging the cloud through our tape as a service offering. Thirdly, affordable and efficient cloud-based disaster recovery. Again, Veeam customers leveraging backup replication, we can take advantage of the replication option within backup and replication and replicate to our cloud-based storage, and give you the ability to leverage disaster recovery in case of a true failure on your on-site premise, on your on-site infrastructure. Today, our main focus, manage backup for Office 365. So leveraging Veeam's Office backup for Office 365, we provide customers with a managed solution, turnkey managed solution where the customer is responsible, has a single pane of glass to restore their backups. And we, Assurance IT, do all the heavy lifting in the back end where there's no need for any on-site repositories. Assurance IT goes ahead and does the heavy lifting in the back end in their cloud-based repositories. So we'll drive through that a little deeper throughout the slide deck. And coming in Q3, we're going to be offering Veeam Pure Storage and Quicity customers S3 Canadian compatible storage. So again, coming soon, and you'll be sure to get an invite for that webinar once we launch this new product. Again, we're going to focus in on who we are and where we are. In regards to where is Assurance IT, whereas we have a state-of-the-art data center located in Montreal On parle français, we're 100% based of our infrastructure is hosted at a secure facility in Canada in the Montreal Stock Exchange building in downtown Montreal. Very important. A lot of our customers ask us, where does your data reside? The data resides in Canada and it is managed by Canadian experts. Drive through the next slide. So the shared responsibility. So essentially, why do we need backup? There's a little bit of a misunderstanding that the customers in the past they've been running infrastructure, Microsoft Exchange infrastructure, whether it be Exchange 2010, 2012, 2016, and they back up that infrastructure, the Exchange server, mailboxes. And the misconception is once they migrate or they have a hybrid environment where they start moving mailboxes to Office 365, there's no need to back up that Exchange server or those mailboxes, and Microsoft really takes care of all that, right? So that's the misconception, and we're going to try to really create a better understanding of what the reality is, right? What does Microsoft take care of, right? And what the customer, your responsibility, what is your responsibility? And that's my job at the beginning of the webinar, really to drive through this perception and the customer reality to make you understand why we do need Office 365 backups. And then Brett will drive deeper into the technical deep dive and show you how you can back up and what options are available. So before we get into the shared responsibility matrix, right? So again, this matrix will help us understand a little more, drive a little deeper, and it's designed to draw the line in the sand, right? To clearly identify who is responsible for what, and it highlights the vulnerabilities of not having an Office 365 backup. By no means is this competitive to Microsoft. This resource is collaborative with Microsoft, and Assurance IT and its partnership with Veeam enhances and augments protection in the areas where Microsoft does not focus. So let's quickly drive through the responsibility matrix, and I will provide you the slide deck at the end of the call where you can really drive deeper and understand why and how. So primary responsibility, as we mentioned earlier, Microsoft takes care of the uptime, right? So Microsoft is responsible for having your data available and having your users connect into the Office 365 solution. But your responsibility is the data that is residing in Office 365, it belongs to the organization, right? Access and control of that data, that becomes your responsibility. So is Microsoft backing it up, or is Microsoft having it available for you? Yes. Do we need to back it up and have it offsite? The answer is also yes. And again, we'll drive deeper in the technicalities of it later on in the call. So again, supporting technologies, right? Recycling bin for limited short-term data retention. We'll get a better understanding of what that retention period is for that recycling bin in case of deletion. And Microsoft is responsible for having your environment up, right? So they do have data replication and DC to DC geo redundancy within their infrastructure. That is not your responsibility. But what is your responsibility, again, is full data retention, right? Office 365 backup to a different location in case Microsoft does go down, in case Microsoft does get hit with some type of attack. Right, it's important to have that data in order to maybe to rehydrate it into a different service or into the Microsoft service in case something would happen. Then we drive into the security level, right? So what does Microsoft do in terms of security, physical, logical, infrastructure level security? And then the data level security becomes your responsibility, right? So accidental deletion, right? One of your users accidentally deletes a folder or a repository, a public folder which contains valuable data. If it drives through that retention period where it's not in the recycling bin, well, you need to explain to the business why you're not able to recover that data, right? And that data level responsibility again drives to the organization, and will follow through with regulatory. Again, data privacy, HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, Microsoft's responsibility to be able to protect against and be compliant. But where it becomes your responsibility is the demands for legal and compliance officers, right? If they're asking you to be able to restore data which is 3 years old, one of your users deletes that data, will you be able to restore that data which is 3 years old for compliance reasons? So again, you have to ask yourself these questions and get a better understanding of where that gray line is, right? Or where we draw the line in the sand of where your responsibility is as a customer, as an organization, and what Microsoft's responsibility is, right? And this slide here really showcases it at a high level. Without Microsoft Office backup for 365, what are the 4 high-level reasons why are you not protected? What implications would you have? And one of them being limited access and control of your data, retention policy gaps and data loss dangers, security vulnerabilities, and regulatory exposure. So at a high level, this is where you're not covered, and this is why we push and we encourage customers to look at the solution and get a better understanding why they need to back up with Office 365. So now a little bit more into the technicalities of it. So I will hand over the presenter role to Brett. 1 second here. Brett, you're good to go.
Greetings, everybody. Can everyone see my screen? Did that transfer over?
Yep, we do. I do.
Perfect. So, greetings, everyone. I'm on behalf of Veeam here. I've been an engineer with Veeam for the last 2 years. And yeah, oh, can everyone hear me now? It looks like I got muted a little bit there. Okay. Assuming, Ernesto,
Yes.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry about that. My bad.
So let's just dive into this, supporting Y materials. So with Office 365, there are 6 reasons of why you need Office 365 backup. Now, Ernesto just covered a couple of those right before we transitioned, but just to dive into this a little bit further, there's always chance for accidental deletions. So as we've mentioned before, it's your organization. You have to own that data as if you were managing an on-prem infrastructure. So if your users delete their data, you still need a point-in-time recovery to be able to pull that data back. And that goes across the board for any of these reasons here as well. So retention policy or confusion gaps as far as what you guys actually need to hold on to, or really what does Microsoft hold on to. Actually, in the next slide, we're actually going to be touching on that as well, is that exactly what does Microsoft hold on to and for how long, and then where does Veeam come in and give you that retention or long-term retention. There's also a chance for internal security threats. So if you have any malicious insiders, anyone that can potentially try to corrupt the data that you have inside. I've actually seen multiple customers come to us after they've had users go in and delete tons of Microsoft Office 365 data that they didn't want to hold on to, or on the chance of they were trying to hide certain information from the company. As long as you're backing up that data with Veeam, Veeam can see any older data, and we also have e-discovery options, as you'll see as we get into the demo, that you can apply as well, so that you can be able to see any modified data or deleted data from users. And then there's also external security threats like ransomware. If there's any ransomware attacks, that still falls on you to be able to recover that data. And once again, Microsoft doesn't give you that point-in-time recovery. Legal and compliance requirements. So if there's a lot of organizations I find need at least a 7-year retention, if not more. And Veeam gives you the option to keep whatever retention that you need for your organization. 3-year, 7-year, keep everything forever. We can hit all of those metrics for you. Then lastly is the managing hybrid deployments and migrations. So not only does Veeam help protect Office 365 organizations, but as well as on-prem Exchange organizations as well. So if you, and SharePoint. So if you have both and you need to maybe manage both because you need to be able to recover from the cloud, or you're not putting everything into the cloud in Office 365 and you want to be able to recover back on-prem, Veeam gives you that capability to do that as well. So let's actually show you where, what does Microsoft actually hold on to as far as in your inbox and deleted items. Ideally, what I want you guys to get out of the slide is that Microsoft just archives data, right? So you'll see as we move on to the next piece here, that your data is moved to an archive. And you'll see that most data is also deleted most of the time, or is compromised about 140 days is the typical retention. You'll see for most of the categories here that your data is already permanently deleted at that point in time, that you might need to actually make a recovery. So in that regard, like I said, since Microsoft just moves your data and it doesn't actually have a copy of that data, that's where Veeam comes in, and you can see that as long as you have a secondary copy of your data, then you actually have a point-in-time recovery tool to be able to bring that data back, regardless of where, whenever Microsoft deletes or purges data out of their systems. So not only are we here to kind of show you from our examples and where our customers really find use in Veeam, but it's also on the Microsoft Office 365 website. So you'll see here, you can actually see this for yourself. It will say, with Office 365, it's your data, you own it, you control it. And that, if we haven't been hammering it home enough, it's definitely true, right? You need to be able to hold on to this data as if it was your own. Like I said, you're managing your own Office, or I mean your own on-prem Exchange or SharePoint servers. And just like you would treat that Exchange server, you would probably want to have a backup of that as well. And ideally, that's what we're accomplishing here with Veeam. You'll also see is that it will say that point-in-time restoration of mailbox items is out of the scope of Office 365. So in this case, once again, Microsoft is just moving your data, it's just archiving it, but if that data gets deleted out of that archive in this case, it's still on you to be able to restore that back. So let's actually go into a couple of different things now and show you what features and functionalities you'll get with Office 365 Backup. So right now we are on version 3, and you'll see that Veeam will be able to protect your Office 365 data from any of the aforementioned threats that we talked about before. Security threats, accidental deletion, retention policy gaps. We can restore your data very quickly. We have basically right-click restore options for just a single mail items or entire inboxes or entire users. You have ways to archive your own data if you want to. You have users that leave the company frequently. You can archive out their data to PST, for example. And then also you can meet your legal and compliance requirements with e-discovery options, as I discussed a little bit earlier. So here's just a good amount of our restores that you'll have available to you for Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive for Business. You'll see here that there's options like being able to send emails that you have in your backups as email items to users or to different users. You can restore just single items out as PST files. You can overwrite to the original location, or if you had an on-prem Exchange server, you can restore back to that as well. So whichever way that you want to cut it, you have a lot of different restore options available to you, depending on whether you're using Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, or all the above. So one of the biggest things, this is Veeam's top grossing and growing product over the last year. So in 2018, we had a 549% growth in customers, and that includes 55,000 organizations downloaded the product, and then also 7 million Office 365 users is what that represents. And as well as that, we have 6,500 customers and counting. These are just a couple big names that we have just for you guys to take a look at here. But as you know, Veeam is, or in our Office 365 product, is out of all of our products, our fastest growing product that we've had to date. So what's new in version 3? So Veeam has a track history of growing innovation, and with version 1, we just started out with just simply backup for Exchange Online, and then in version 2, we introduced backup for OneDrive for Business as well as SharePoint Online, And in version 3, we've added a few other things as well. So we'll leave this up for just a second. But in version 3, we've added some more security enhancements, faster backups for SharePoint and OneDrive, and we'll kind of dive into that. So for example, 30 times faster backup. So for SharePoint Online and OneDrive for business, incremental backups are shortened dramatically. And this can be from minutes to seconds or from hours to minutes. The way that Veeam works specifically is that your very first run of your job will be a full, and then we just do incrementals from that point forward. And you can see a little quote down here, 30 times faster, they basically saw backups that were going as much as 75% faster. That's incredible. So now we've also increased our security. So we now have multi-factor authentication support. We did not have that before. Basically, it was just a legacy or a basic authentication through a service account. Now, any customers that have multi-factor, we do support that as well. We have added in free reports that you can use within the product as well. This includes a mailbox protection report, a license management report, and then a storage usage report. This is just for additional visibility into your environment so you can know how much consumption that you're using over time or how many licenses you're using across all your users. We also have other additional enhancements here as well. For anyone that knows Veeam backup and replication and is comfortable with the way that we did backups for that product, we basically did snapshot-based retention where we would back up everything and that would be a single point in time. So we've introduced that level of retention within the backup for Office 365 as well. And essentially it's your snapshot-based level of retention where we'll back up everything in Office 365 and you'll tell Veeam how many of those snapshots you want to keep over the course of your retention policy. For anyone that's used this product in the past, we still have retained our original item level snapshot. And we'll dive into that in a second as kind of what the default is for Office 365 retention, but just know we've added additional retention policy enhancements. We also have simplified management for larger environments. Basically, what this means is if you have a large amount of data in Office 365, what this is going to do is give you ways that no matter what the file size limitation is of your repository, as soon as that fills up, we'll just create another database to store your Office 365 backup files into. We've enhanced our OneNote items restore. We've also extended our search and stop and start options. Basically, before you just have to set a schedule, now you can actually start and stop jobs on the fly. And then also you can rename organizations, and of course we've added more enhancements to hybrid organizations as well. So let's actually go into a little bit of how it works, and then we'll finish up with the demo here. So when you're looking at Office 365, if you have an on-premise organization and a Office 365 online organization off to the left, all this goes back to the Assurance IT backup repository. So it's just pretty much ease of management so that you don't actually have to maintain the infrastructure. All that you're going to be able to do is do your restores. And when you're doing restores, you'll see that there's a lot of different restore options for you. So you can restore back to Office 365 from that backup repository hosted by Assurance IT. You can restore back on-prem as another option as well. You're just going to pull from your backup repository and then be able to restore your data, either back on-prem or back to your organization. Overwriting original options, overwrite to the original location. You can save as files, you can save as a zip, save as a PST, as I mentioned earlier. A lot of different options that you'll have available to you. So let's just dive into a demo and show you guys actually what this will look like. So in Office 365 backup, ideally what you're going to want to do is install this on any 64-bit Windows machine. It could be in the cloud, it could be on-prem, wherever you'd like. And what you're going to be using this for is for restores. So Assurance IT is going to be hosting the back-end infrastructure. So like I said, you don't even have to manage the repositories, proxies, or any of that, the backup infrastructure components. What you're going to be able to do is just come in here and let's say you want to do a restore. Well, let's close out of this real quick, but you're going to see your Office 365 management. We're going to click Explore, and we're going to say, let's say we want to explore Exchange from a point-in-time state. So we're simply just going to go over here. We're going to enable our e-discovery options to be able to show items that have been deleted by the user or show all versions that have been modified by the user. Then we're going to simply go over to a point in time that we'd like to recover from. And if we, actually, let's close out of this, but let's try that one more time. So once again, I'm just going to choose one of these options, and then we're going to hit Finish and open up the Veeam Explorer for Exchange. So what this is going to do is, once you're in here, and if this is your first time, you're going to click here at the top left and hit Add Store, and then we're just going to connect to Assurance IT, because all your backup files are going to live there once they've connected with you and established a plan of kind of what you're looking to protect. So once we can see our backups, you're going to be able to see this down here as that store that you've just added in, and then now we can see all of our users and then be able to make restores. So if we went to My User and we went into the inbox, we can now see all of our mail items populate. We can preview mail items simply by double clicking on them and being able to make sure that these are the items that we wish to restore. And once you're ready to make a restore, you can simply right click on this and then you'll be able to see the different restore options available to you. So you can restore back to the original location, you can restore to a different location, export to PST, you could save it as a message file, or as I mentioned earlier, you could send it as an email to the user directly or to a different user. Another thing as well that you can do is, like I said, let's say the user left the company, you can simply right click on their name here, export out all their data to PST, and then that way you can reassign licenses or to a different user that may join the company after 30 days. So this will give you a little bit of wiggle room as well as so that you don't have to continuously back up the same user even though that they've left the company ideally. But that's not to mention, so outside of just inbox items, you can restore calendar items, contacts, deleted items, the online archive, you can restore permanently deleted items as well. So whatever it comes down to, or what it really boils down to for recovery, you'll be able to do that within here with just, like I said, a simple right click. While you're searching for mail items, I just want to make sure that you guys see this as well. There is advanced find options as well, so that you can be able to find your mail items easily and simply. You can search off categories, field, condition, value, and essentially stack these to the list until you're ready to hit search, and then Veeam's going to be able to search across the list here and then find your mail items accordingly. So other than that, I just wanted to just be able to touch on or really kind of pass this back over to Ernesto to go over pricing and licensing. Ernesto, unless if there's anything else that you think that would be relevant to show here.
No, I think that was a great demo, Brett. Really, you drove through the simplicity of being able to work with backing up Office 365 and the customer simplicity of just having the restore console in order to restore his files. And you showcased how many different ways that, how flexible the restore option is. I just want to add to this maybe in regards to Exchange Online, right? The same feature applies to SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, right? So when we go ahead and we'll look at the product licensing next and pricing, you'll see that it is a per user basis, right? So the user would be one user, whether he be using Office 365, email, SharePoint, or OneDrive for Business. That data has the ability to be backed up by Assurance IT, and these restore options or these explorers, as Brett is showcasing on his desktop, are available for all three products. Does that make sense, Brett?
Absolutely. Yep. So you'll definitely be able to cover any and all the above for OneDrive, for Business, SharePoint, and then also Teams data as well. If you have Teams, that will also be covered wherever that data resides, whether that's in Exchange or SharePoint as well. So, and one user license covers all of the above.
Fantastic. So I will take presenter back. Screen 2, share. Again, we're doing great on time, right? It's 2:34. We promised you half an hour to 45 minutes, and I think we will be able to keep that promise. So again, as we mentioned, everyone see, Brett, you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Excellent. As we went through the summary at the beginning of the call, we said that we would drive through the packaging and the pricing, and the simplicity of the pricing and the packaging, right? It's very simple. Again, this is a managed backup and recovery for Microsoft Office 365, which is licensed per user, which includes Exchange, OneDrive, and SharePoint. Now, how much data? Very simple, unlimited, right? So as Brett mentioned, introduced in version 3, retention policy similar to your Veeam backup and replication schedules. So where we drive retention policies for 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on your compliance needs, right? So all the customer would need would be able to install the Veeam Explorers for Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive on their on-premise infrastructure. No need for on-site repository. Those NASs which you need to manage, those on-site repositories, those Windows servers, repositories, no need to manage those, grow them, buy additional. It's all managed by Assurance IT. Again, all having a self-service portal as Brett demoed earlier on the webinar. So importance, last step, your data is backed up and fully protected and managed in our Canadian data center. And again, it's very important. We recently came back from a user group, a VMware user group in Vancouver, which was where we showcased the Canadian flag. You'll see it up in the corner where it is essential for Canadian customers and where their data resides in Canada. So again, we keep on mentioning it. Very important. Your data does not leave Canada and it's managed by Canadians. So in terms of packaging, upfront $50 per user per year, billed up front, and we also do offer monthly packages, which is $5 per Canadian per user. If you have any other further questions, you could hit us at assuranceit.ca. There's a form there where you could fill out, and we'll get back to you. Send us an email at info@assuranceit.ca or reach us at our 1877 number, which is listed at the bottom of the screen. Fantastic. Key takeaway actions. So for customers that really want to try it and see what technicalities and what features are available, feel free to trial it yourself. You could test it for free for 30 days, which is the direct link where you'll have ability to install, as Brett mentioned, on an x64 server, install the tool and be able to back up and restore it yourself. We are also offering managed backup and Office 365 for 50 users for free for 3 months. If you want to take advantage of this demo, of this promotion, Luigi, who is our sales representative, will be following up. If he hasn't already followed up with an email with the promotion, you can, again, get back to us at assuranceit.ca, info@assuranceit.ca, or reach us at our 1877 number. Questions? Again, I've been monitoring the queue. I put some creative links or some important links in the chat throughout the webinar. I have not seen any questions. Brett, is there anything maybe I've missed that you want to touch upon?
I think you've covered everything. I think I might see a question here. Is there an on-prem storage option rather than the Assurance IT solution offered here? Did you want to cover that?
Yeah, there we go. Is there? Absolutely, right. So again, this is a managed service where we include Assurance IT includes licensing and on and off-premise repository where we manage and manage that infrastructure. Well, there is a Veeam license options where I will go back one slide. If you see my screen, you can see the link at the bottom, go.veeam.com/backup-office-365. You can download the tool in order to install and configure it on your infrastructure and leverage your on-site repository. Again, there is a cost per license, which is per user per year. You can work with us in regards to getting that licensed if it's something that makes sense to you and your organization. Shared mailboxes. Dominic has a question about shared mailboxes. Brett, would you be able to answer that? What happens with shared mailboxes? Are they counted as users?
So that's a great question. So shared mailboxes do not consume user licenses as long as when you go to add in users or when you're working with Assurance IT, as long as you'll see that that's a shared mailbox within Office 365, that will not consume a user license. Veeam only licenses per unique user license. So those will be included with your license.
Excellent. And you know what? There is an FAQ on the Veeam website which I will share with the group, and that's one of the questions that they go ahead and highlight in that FAQ section in the Veeam website, which I just shared with the entire group here.
So then other things like the online archive, as well as like resource mailboxes or public folders, that applies in the same fashion. As long as it's only per unique user or per unique user mailbox that we license, and then all those other mailboxes, like we mentioned, shared public folders and so on, those are included with your backup within your license.
Yeah, that was the question you're answering from Dan, right? Can Office 365 group mailboxes be backed up or archived, right? So the group mailboxes can, and essentially everything that applies to a user mailbox would apply to a group mailbox.
Correct.
Let's see if I go through the questions here. Is there any on-prem storage option rather than Assurance IT solution? We answered that one. If already use Veeam, does it use the same console as Veeam Backup or is it a different one? Maybe you wanted to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah, so it basically, so if you're going with Assurance IT as your backup provider, you can use the Exchange and SharePoint and OneDrive Explorers that come with backup and replication, and you'll just hit Add Store within the console, and you'll connect to Assurance IT for your repository. And ideally, you can still use that same console. Now, Office 365, if you were to manage it on premise, it does have its own separate console that you work out of. But once again, if you go with Assurance IT, they'll manage that entire infrastructure for you. And then you can just use the Explorers for Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive to connect and restore your data easily.
Excellent. We have another question that came in from Gabriel Beauchamp. Do we have to take a license for all users in the organization regarding SharePoint, or can we take a license only for a few users? That's a very good question, right? So as a managed solution offering, or whether you install and configure and manage it yourself, you can go ahead and select the entire organization, or you can go ahead and select selective users that you want to go ahead and back up. So we have one organization where we work with where they divided their user base similar to the way they would divide their server count, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and they've opted in right now to back up tier 1, which is their high level executives, as a managed service offering, which they work with us to do so. So yes, the answer is yes, you can segment that your users and back up only the users that you want to back up in your organization. Eddie has a question here. So he says, we have about 1,500 mailboxes. How long will it take to do the backup? Assume they're about 500 megs per mailbox. Again, it depends, right? So it really depends on, as Ben mentioned, the first backup is a full, which we will be backing up your entire contents of your Office 365 contents, and then it would be followed up with a incremental backup, which is only the delta of that day. So Eddie, that's a very good question. We would have to really go through it. We have some numbers where we can share with you after the call or on a separate call. We have some data numbers of how long it took us for some of our existing customers, and we can get on a subsequent call and discuss that a little further if you like. Okay, I like that. The questions keep on driving in. I like this. It means that we hit on a very, very interesting topic. So David has a question. Unlimited storage with Assurance IT. That is correct, right? So the storage is unlimited. So it is $50 per year per user or $5 per month, and it is unlimited storage. So as long as you keep on, as long as we built an archive or a compliance schedule around that, we continue backing up on a daily basis, and it is unlimited. So again, I'm going to repeat myself. It's unlimited storage. There's no tax or there's no cost for there's no demarcation point for backing up. That's another great question. How Eddie has a question on how's the longest retention period? Typically, the retention period we work with, the default retention period is 3 years. Again, we can alter that. We can go ahead and drive it up. Brett, maybe you can help us. Is there a dead mark on the longest retention period we can drive, or we can have the retention period forever?
You can absolutely have your retention period forever. So if you want to keep all data forever ongoing, that's absolutely an option within Office 365 Backup.
Fantastic. Right. So Eddie, so I hope that answers your question. So we can, depending on your compliance needs or your archive needs or your internal policies, we can drive that retention period for as long as you like. Let's see if we have any other questions here. We do. This is good. Pouvez-vous me nommer présentateur? Yann Emmanuel. Yann, I'm going to put you, Yann Emmanuel. What we'll do is I'll take you off of mute. Yann, do you have a question? I guess not. Yann? No, I guess not. Well, we tried that. Eddie, he's rocking the chat, right? So that's fantastic. So Eddie, any nonprofit discount, 1,500 mailbox is a lot of money. Again, I encourage you to reach out to us directly, info@assuranceit.ca. My colleagues in sales will definitely work with you to look at what type of discounting options there are for nonprofit and get you on board, trialed, and make sure that the mailbox time period or the backup window fits your organizational needs. Okay, so I think. Oh, yeah, okay, perfect. That was a mistake. Excellent. Okay, good. So I think we're good. I think we've answered all the questions. Again, I will be sending the slides to everyone in the recorded webinar within the next business day or so. If you have any questions, I'll bring it up again. I'll bring up the slide again. Feel free to reach out to us by filling out the form on assuranceit.ca, sending us an email at info@assuranceit.ca, or reach out to us at our 1-877 number, where one of our representatives will work with you in order to get you pricing, or our technical staff can work with you to get you a trial and demo the solution in order for it to hit your objectives and move forward for Assurance IT and your organization, creating a partnership and working together as a long-term business strategy. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending the webinar today. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.